And so, again, it is a great honor to once again present Martín Prechtel.
Oh, I got two microphones. Big bull walrus. I like that. I've never been compared to a bull walrus. It's quite good to come to Minneapolis and Minnesota to see all you guys and to be seen by you guys. And I hope that the spirits make me adequate to, do something good and say something good. But first things first, it's got to be the spirit, before me. Because I'm just a guy that's dressed in skins, poor, wandering mischief maker who somehow survived all of the attacks on things that don't want people to play and be alive. And you're here because you made it too. That's good, every one of you. So I got to make a little prayer. That's just the way we do things. And not because we're in the church, but also because we're in the church. Because everybody's way is good to me, as long as it's dealing with making things live and honoring those other things that we often forget about because we're wrestling around so fast trying to eat and stay ahead of that thing that wants to eat us. So let me make a little prayer, and of course, you're stuck with listening to it in my tongue of Tzutujil Mayan. So I make this prayer now. It's for spirit. You think good thought, and it'll go right through my mouth to the other world with you. Yo'ostishel kwashel hawa amuntul shlev shawa elbakata nikabakata chochik choshkamil kilabut silabut slabe kalo nimlata kaslimal man kerpna anaban kerpna kanami alale kwalabrets bolena tale elbi ele wachawa kmatiyoshin katsana wachin katsana wawachwawi akorut levka hera hasut mu yefskon qakai pa khamusmula hera itsbolena ta elbi ele wachawa nimlaka kan Batsari ko wa ivilka bihiran katsana wa katsana wa kan haktit kama ma akunak uliv pokla. Okunak uliv pokla hasa chikami kana hakana tali. Sakiwa sakime talom yom papalom sakawas kame skamet yom lamalaha paknel. Paknel shahabran kana tali elibi elele wajawa kon la. Sheheri van kerwa bi ko hilali khun he chucha ai ko wa heri ka kana shehen kinok nikah bal hinok shihibanak chinok chin kibeta mahan kibeta. شمهون كمستانتي بيمون كمستانتي وإستابرس لا سين كنوالانتي والهانك وخوخو شنايا ناسي بابنا شكيلاب وتسلاب كلاو نملا تقسل مالو شكول ما تيشيل تيوشوا. Those of you that want to repeat this phrase after me that I'm going to say, you can do it if you want to. And if you don't want to, it's all right too. Let's go. Kilab, Utsilab, Utslach be, Utslach lo. Nimlach tak aslimal oshilhuch matushil. And this means, of course, long life, honey in the heart, white roads paved with the eyebrows of the moon, which is sea foam, yellow roads, all color roads, which is paved with abundance. From the tail of the morning star, which is a deer. No evil. 13 thank yous. Yes, good. See, you just said amen in Mayan. That's Oshlechu Matishil. That means 13 thank yous. That's how we say amen at the end of any prayer. And people say, why do you say 13? 13 because Mayans are very strange like that. You have a lot of this pan-Indian stuff going around nowadays. Says there's 4 directions or 6 directions. Mayans have 260 directions. They're the same. It's the same as 4, same as 6, same as 7, only they're delineated. And 13 is just a way for them to say all things. Because 12 is supposed to be everything that we can see, and 13th is something uncalculated, unknown, unmeasurable, unbuyable, unsellable, that can't be killed. So it's called the 13th. So we say 13 thank yous to make it. So everything got some gratitude. So The Mayan people of Guatemala, Tzutujil, those of you haven't been afflicted with my barrage of wordiness in the past, have probably wonder what that is. Tzutujil, this is a small group of Mayan peoples down in Guatemala, not in Mexico. Most people think Maya, they think Yucatan, which are also Mayan peoples. But these people are from the highlands, way up in the mountains. Not like Minnesota, like a mountain. You know where you are in Guatemala, actually. In Minnesota, you never really know where you are. Well, I never know where I am until you come and tell me. And so I know I'm in Minneapolis at the moment. It's because somebody here told me that, and I'm believing you. The airplane maybe faked me out, but I'm pretty sure I'm in Minneapolis. But in Guatemala, we've got mountains, so we can always see where we are. And in New Mexico, it's not unlike that. Okay, so when we get up there, on this mountainous land, you can see the Tzutujil people. And Tzutujil people, there's only about 40,000 of them. When you say, well, that's a lot of Indians. In Guatemala, that's the smallest group. The others, there's 2 million of Quiches, and 800,000 Cachiqueles, and I don't know how many Moms and Ixil. And Tzutujil, just a little bunch of guys down in the south side of the Lake Atitlan. So all these prayers that you're hearing are a sacred version of their language. And they have, as we spoke last time I was here, we have man language and we have woman language. Men and women have different languages. And then we have sacred talk, and then we have this prayer talk. So we have sacred oratory. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Hopefully we can get to this, is the idea of grief and praise. The reason I want to talk about it is normally I wouldn't, in the village, we wouldn't stand up and talk about grief and praise, being one and the same thing to us. But I was noticing something the other day. I work with a lot of people. A lot of people work with me, and we come together to be together. And I was noticing that if you're going to notice the people that feel real bad about themselves when they're like middle age, it's nobody praised them for something worthy when they were this tall. They may have praised them for something, but they may not have praised them for something worthy. And then I noticed those people who couldn't weep properly for the dead. And they couldn't weep properly. And when I say properly, I'm not talking about right and wrong here. I'm talking, when I say properly, like really know how to do it, where you look bad when you're done. When your hair is missing and your clothes are ripped and you're down in the street. And I thought, why is this? Why is this? Because I noticed the people that couldn't grieve couldn't praise. Or if they did, it was very hard for them. And it wasn't their fault. I thought, what is this about this place? It's like that. What is it about this? And so I realized this thing is that when we speak in Maya, did you hear the prayer I just made? This is an ordinary prayer. Do you hear the grief in that? Right away, I bring tear to my eye. It's not an act. It's not theatrics. It's right away. Because your mortality is in your face every time you praise, realistically. Now people say, what does that mean? How does he really mean that? It's because if you are praising something, your grief, we're not just talking about grief for the hell of it, we're talking about true grief, has to be present for the stakes to be high enough for the praise to be legitimate. Now if you're in a workplace and somebody says, that's a really nice job, chances are what they're trying to do is make sure you keep doing that job right. And not too concerned about your ancestry or your children growing up without pain or getting killed in the streets. But if a true praise is coming along, then it's got to contain the notion that you're mortal and that the praiser is mortal. And that the beauty is that this moment we're all together at this place to be together. And there's a grief in that makes the magic of the praise very real, because the stakes are extremely high. You see what I mean? At the same time, any grieving, what is that? Somebody dies, or a loved one goes somewhere else, or like myself, had your whole country ripped out beneath you. All right? And then what is that grief that you finally do? What is it? It's a form of praise of life, because it means you miss it. You miss the damn thing. And you have to do like that. You have to be able to do like that. Because otherwise it means you don't love the thing you lost. What use is it? You gotta love the thing you lost, just like you gotta love the thing you got. So that's what the thing you got. And when you're grieving for the thing you got, is praise. And when you're praising for the thing you lost, it's called grief. You understand what I'm saying? Now, unfortunately, or fortunately for us in the village, we're not too, and we have our own problems. You know, we got all kinds of other things. And one thing is we're all pretty stuck up, like me. We all walk around like little chiefs. That's not because we think we're hot. We just figured that the spirits want us to be this way so that we appreciate the gift of being alive. The gift of being alive means you strut your stuff, not necessarily grandiosity. And if you do that, you expect to fall down and trip. And then you have to laugh at yourself. But there's a praise of the spirits too. And there's a grief about the spirits. Because what's happening, hope I'm not running too deep into Mayan esoteric thinking here, but what is happening is the spirits are also in trouble. Our spirits are in trouble. And the big spirits, God, if you want to call it that, we don't have that word, but we call them the owners. Not our owners, they don't own us. Each one takes care of a little thing. And they all work together like a symbiosis. It's an ecology of spirit. And your spirit is there too. Those spirits are hungry and they're also hurting. And they also have grief. It's very mysterious for people to think of gods and spirits as having grief. What do they grieve? What dies for them? Where do they go when they die? Everybody says, what? Gods die? Gods miss each other? Gods miss us? Well, where we come from, we believe that. We believe that. And so we spend all our time, any of you know me, know how much time I spend throwing jades in lakes and burning candles and giving flour and giving this gift and that gift and giving things to people and receiving things from people. That's not because I'm trying to make myself big. That's because I'm trying to feed something that's hungry. And that feeding of hunger, that's part of praise. That's what the gods drink. That's one of the major foodstuffs of a spirit, is praise. That's why we began right now making this talk tonight in praise of those spirits that gave us life so that we can grieve, so that we can be alive. Now, I'm a little different than your normal workshop shaman that goes around country. You notice I'm using the word shaman, you say. I learned this last year, not to say shaman, see? Because people think it means shame. So we say shaman, like we're from England. We say shaman, you say. And, or we can do it like we say shaman, and then they think you're from France. You know. Yeah. Or you can say shamanka, and they think you're from Russia. Which is the original word, shamanka, which means a lady shaman. Because most of the shamans in Siberia are women. And some are men, and some are in between guys. They do both kinds. You know, they're gatekeeper people. You know. That's why we don't want to put nobody down. Because there's a function for everything here. Nobody left out. And that's the main thing about grief that I couldn't figure out. I said, now why do people running around not grieving? It's not because they're bad people. Why is praise such an uncool thing? Why is it so uncool to praise? And I realized it's because of trust. When there's no village, per se, then how can you trust anybody to see you in that quote-unquote, what people here will call irrational state? Either one of them. Whether you're inordinately praising something, what I guess the Sufis would call, out of your mind for God, or you'd be praising. A lot of people, they used to read these troubadour poems from France and Germany and Austria and places, in the Provençal, or they used to read Sufi poem out of context. They thought they were love poems to their sweethearts. And they were, because sweetheart was the spirit. They write these beautiful long things to the spirit. It's praising the spirit. And every one of those things contain grief. Every one of those things contain grief. Like the old Sufi poems, I have to die for this love, what a bargain. If there's not grief in that, I don't know where it is. If it makes you weep for happiness, there's grief in it. They're mixed inextricably. And I was talking with Mr. Thomas Smith tonight, where in Krista was jabbering around, like we do. And I was doing all the jabbering, actually, but as I do. And I'm sorry about that, but what can I do? They made me like this. And we were talking about the village, and the trust thing and all that was a grieving. And I realized in the village, like we're not worried about people being irrational or rational. Because we haven't got no verb to be in the language. So you can't be rational or you can't be irrational. You can't just be something like that. You're always in flux, changing around. So if you have somebody wandering down the street going, weeping their eyes out, falling in the ground, pulling their hair out. People don't go around and say, what's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with this lady? They go out and say, let's go listen. Let's go listen. So everybody comes around and listens. Maybe the person has taken an inebriant. Maybe they're drunk. We don't go say, oh, that's a drunk. We don't say that. We say that's a tear loosener. It's a tear loosener. It's medication. The only time you use alcohol is for medication. Don't use it to stay high. But then why do people drink all the time? They say, Sach nakpaya. Lost in liquid, they say. Lost in the grief. Lost in liquid. Anybody that drinks, addicted or anything, stays lost in water. They're still in the water. They have to be pulled out of the water. Need the community, need the village to pull out the water. The one person, they can't do it alone. So this is a culture of individualists. So you can't afford to grieve. Because there's nobody going to pull you out of the water. So the whole idea of grief is to make people care for each other. And that's why all the chiefs, whenever they praise, they start off with grief. The first thing they say, our grandmothers and our grandfathers died to keep this thing alive. And I have failed you with my way of going about it. But all I can offer you is your death. If we don't go down this place, the children are going to starve. So if you come with me, thank you. And if you don't, we're going to pull it for you. Don't worry. There's grief in there and there's praise in there. You're praising the people for doing what they can do. And you're being sad for the fact that it didn't get done right. And you're remembering the ancestors that died to carry all this thing that we know. It's all mixed in there. It's not separated. And I'm not saying everybody should all of a sudden be sad all the time, because grief is not sadness. And it's not depression. Depression is lack of grief. It's rage. They don't want to, have a home. It's what they call a homeless beast. This beast is sorrow. So the ability to laugh and the ability to weep, they live in the same house. And the Mayans say, Hun chatin kiwarawa. It means they all sleep in the same bed. That's what it means. It means they're relatives. It's not child abuse. And it's not that. It's not adultery. It means they're all siblings. I mean, grief, praise live in the same bed. Laughing and crying lives in the same bed. Come from the same muscle. Come from the same muscle. So when somebody passes away with us and the tears don't loosen properly, what do? We search for women. We search for women who are very sensitive to life. We have professional women in our village who are known to be very sensitive to life. We search for them. And we search for men who are very sensitive to life. And they're known as professional weepers. We bring them in. We hire them. We pay them. Of course, we don't pay them in money. We pay them in cloth and chickens and food for the rest of their lives. And they come in the house and they look at the situation and they get the situation explained to them, which of course in the village they already know what it is. I mean, everybody knows what color your pee is before you're done peeing, in the village, and everybody knows what everybody's doing, or what they think they're doing, and then you hear about that. And which just creates a lot of grief, and I have to do a lot of praise to get over it. And so that makes a lot of work for the shamans, and we like it. But this they do, I mean, it's a good racket, make a lot of trouble and then go fix it. It's like forest fire guys setting forest fires and then going out and putting them out and getting money on both sides. But shamans are well known for this. They're not holy people. They're people who are in love with the sacred. They're not people who are paragons of virtue. They're not pedestal beings. They're a bunch of rascals. As a matter of fact, I don't even like shamans. They're a pain in the ass. But, you got to deal with something in this world. It's like badgers. They bite you, but they have a use. They have a use, and they also have love in them, too. And shamans have love in them. But when these women, especially women, men also, when they hear the situation, what happens? Eventually they start feeling and empathizing with what's going down. And then they start making these huge speeches. And then when they're done making these huge speeches, the tears starts rolling. And when those tears start rolling, everybody else's tears starts rolling too. You can't stop. It's natural. It's as natural as eating or speaking or seeing or tasting. So why has it become almost like an unspeakable thing anymore? I don't know. Why that throw away? Plus you feel so good when it's done. I don't say you feel good. You feel alive. I don't know about good is the word, and maybe not the word, but alive. Because you know the spirits, they hate anything that's too tall. So if it's too tall, it wants to knock you down. And if it's too low, it wants to buoy you up. And so if you're able to grieve, it brings you back to life. Why is that? It's because the spirits have a vested interest in keeping you alive and keeping you well, because they need you to feed them. There's a third thing that we live for. Like here, in the modern world, and maybe in most places, they think of God and the human being. Where we come from, we got the spirits. Some people like to call them gods. Got us and this world, and then you got a third thing that's not the gods, and it's not us. And that's called life. That lives beyond us and has lived before us. We were not born at the beginning of the earth. And hopefully our blessing is that we don't die at the end of it. That it continues beyond us with a little bit of our beautiful smell in the air. So that somebody after us can sniff that beautiful perfume of our existence and be inspired to go on and make more beauty. Because that's what the spirits eat, is that beauty. And grief is part of that beauty, and praise is part of that beauty. So they have a vested interest in us to keep us going so that they can keep going, because it's a symbiotic kind of a negative positive pulse that goes back and forth, and between that pulse starts a third thing, and that third thing in the middle called the heart of life, which has no power on itself except to give life, but can't keep itself going without the other two sides back and forth. So the spirits give it to us and we give it to them.